You keep using the word theory, and the one word that's not been used yet is evidence. This whole opening of the mind to this conspiracy version of world events has not been as a result of psychological profiles or whatever. It's been the result of people saying they're lying to us.
Were the Twin Towers brought down as a result of the airplanes that struck them and the fires that followed? Or were they brought down in a controlled demolition? Where would people get an idea like that?
At the base of the towers, we find the most disturbing evidence. Several tons of molten metal seen by the first responders, the cleanup workers, and we have photo evidence, video evidence, eyewitness evidence.
Molten steel running down the channel mills. Like lava.
Some pieces of steel from the rubble of Building 7 had large holes burned through them, evidence that a high-temperature corrosive material had formed and burned through the beams.
Active thermitic material discovered in dust from the 9/11 World Trade Center catastrophe.
I was examining a dust sample, and what I found was a chip.
Red on one side, gray on the other. The red side is composed of tiny iron oxide particles and aluminum.
And these are the components of thermite. Then what you see in all four samples that we studied in this detail: carbon, oxygen, iron, and aluminum. That was surprising to me to see silicon and carbon, but then we find in the literature that's what these guys are doing in the weapons labs. They're adding organic because that gives you the explosive force. He took one of these chips and he put it in the differential scanning calorimeter, and sure enough, it went off at right about 430 centigrade, but more importantly, the peak was high, which means a lot of energy released, and narrow, which means it blew up.
Regardless of how it was done or who was responsible, what happened to the Twin Towers seems obvious enough. They were brought down in a highly engineered, unconventional, controlled demolition. It was a psychological attack on the American people, and it was pulled off with military precision.
Everyone agrees that climate change is the biggest challenge facing humanity. That's the constant claim of the political elite, and it's a lie. Everyone does not agree.
The science has settled, said Al Gore, which is the most unscientific statement you could meet.
700 scientists from more than 400 institutions in more than 40 countries in the last 20 years have contributed to papers that I know about and can, on notice, list, saying that the medieval warm period was real, was global, and was noticeably warmer than the present, so that there's nothing special about today's temperatures.
The emails leaked from the East Anglia Climate Centre in England showed extensive efforts to make the data show warming where none existed.
We see evidence of fraud within the emails themselves, evidence of fraud within the code itself, and we have complete suppression of the scientific method.
They had control of their own peer review process.
Their Orwellian consensus is based not on scientific agreement, but on bullying, censorship, and fraudulent statistics.
When I looked in the data, I found a pattern of deletion of thermometers that was surprising, to say the least. At the peak, there were about 6,000 thermometers in the data series, and then around 1989 to 1990, it suddenly plummeted to around 1,500. They were comparing a period where they had thermometers in cold places with a current set of temperatures where they had deleted the thermometers from the cold places.
They did their average based on the old network with all its cold stations, and they're taking only the current data and comparing that to the averages from before, ensuring that you're going to find warming.
The world is cooling. Global warming is a fraud.
If our carbon footprints are not changing climate, well, what is? The latest research is zeroing in on cosmic rays from deep space, interacting with our atmosphere to create more low clouds, leading to climate change. As true scientists always say, more research is needed.
A congressional committee has concluded that President John Kennedy and civil rights leader Martin Luther King Jr., both of them, were probably killed as the result of conspiracies.
The CIA admitted in 1964 that Oswald was trained as a CIA agent. I have the document in my hand. Oswald was CIA.
On the outskirts of the national capital today, black limousines with darkened windows converged on a hotel where private security guards imposed ironclad control. The limos carried royalty, political power brokers, and industrial titans to a secret meeting that will last all weekend. It's known as the Bilderberg Group. Could their objective be world domination?
In 1954, the elite of the planet met in secret at the Bilderberg Hotel in Oosterbeek, Holland. The Bilderberg Group would later admit that their mission was the formation of the EU.
So this is 50 years ago saying we must have a European Union.
U.S. officials who wheel and deal with the Bilderbergs violate federal law. The law that forbids unauthorized citizens from negotiating with foreign governments.
They know that what they're doing is undemocratic. They know that what they're doing is not proper.
They make no secret about their desire for one world economy, one world government.
2009 is also the first year of global governance with the establishment of the G20 in the middle of the financial crisis. The climate conference in Copenhagen is another step towards the global management of our planet.
The driving force behind globalism is just plain old socialism. The wealthy elite who have the money and the power know that if they can create a one world global social system, that they can control the central authority. In other words, world domination.
Kurt Haskell was a passenger on Flight 253. Mr. Haskell says he saw Abdul Muttalib with a well-dressed man, and according to Mr. Haskell, the two were trying to get ticket agents to let him on board the plane without a passport.
They don't ask why he was let on the plane when he's on a terror watch list and had no passport. It's all about how we now need to be oppressed because of it.
You step in, this meter wave radiation that major medical scientists and reports have said are definitely cancer-causing, energize your body. It shoots right through your clothes and shoots a totally crisp image of your naked body.
Regarding the earthquake that happened in Haiti, the Defense Information Systems Agency just happened to be running drills to prepare for the so-called humanitarian relief of Haiti in the event of a hurricane. The day before,
it's just absolutely amazing how there is the remnants of an inside job, even with a quote-unquote natural disaster.
Obama's information czar is in this 29-page document. 1. Government might ban conspiracy theorizing. If you disagree with the government,
literal thought crime.
2. Government might impose some kind of tax, financial or otherwise, on those who disseminate such theories. So a tax on disagreeing with the government. Mainstream scientists or the editors of Popular Mechanics, whom government attempts to enlist to give credibility to its rebuttal efforts. So he's basically admitting that when Popular Mechanics came out and, stood behind the official 9/11 stories, that Popular Mechanics was enlisted by the government to do that.
People have asked me over the years, what's planned? And I've said, read two books, George Orwell's 1984 and Aldous Huxley's Brave New World. Because these two had access to the agenda, they weren't writing from imagination. They had an understanding of where this was supposed to go.
You have a scientific dictatorship that does whatever it wants, whenever it wants to you. The denial is over. The reason you're not angry and the reason you're not like your grandparents or their parents is because for at least 60 years, toxic chemicals have been put in your food and water.
We are in process of developing
a whole series of techniques which will enable the controlling oligarchy to get people actually to love their servitude, to enjoy a state of affairs which, by any decent standard, they ought not to enjoy. And I have noticed with increasing dismay that there seems to be a general movement in the direction of this method of control